Say, Mike, go ahead and mute your camera until we're ready to bring you out so the board just sees each other. Thanks.
All right. Well, I see it's 7 o'clock. Dr. Massey, if you could turn to the flag, thank you very much. We'll rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Member Clerk, could you take a roll call?
Yes. Member Corcoran.
Here.
Member Corcoran is here. Member Ketto.
Here.
Member Ketto is here. Member Olson.
Here.
Member Olson is here. Member Rayfield.
Here.
Member Rayfield is here. Member Tyson.
Here.
Member Tyson is here. Member Peterson.
Here.
Member Peterson is here. And Member Luthner is here.
All right. Thank you, Member Clerk. We will move. I would this time would entertain a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We had no scheduled visitors tonight via the electronic method. There were no emails sent in. So we will move on to student achievement with Scania Elementary Principal Julie Hall.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. When given the opportunity, it's my first year, obviously, in the district, and there were so many things I thought I could highlight. But knowing the district emphasis and focus on a new ELA curriculum and new ELA resources, I thought what a great way to highlight our students and our staff then to talk a little bit about ELA. Normally, I would love to invite you guys into the building to see what happens in person. Obviously, right now we can't do that. So the next best thing is for me to create a video to highlight some of our students in action, as well as some testimonies from teachers. So in the video, you will see actually some of our kindergarten students, our youngest learners, where they're at in their ELA or English language arts journey, so reading and writing, those components. You will also see a second grade classroom. You will hear from a kindergarten teacher, a second grade teacher, and a fourth grade teacher. At the end of the video, you will see the progression of reading in our students. It'll start with a kindergartner, then a second grader, then a fourth grader, and then a sixth grader. So I wanted to highlight our students in action again, what our amazing staff are able to do even given COVID. And I also wanted to highlight a little bit of why we're using the resources we are in looking at our data. So with that, I did prepare a little video for you. Can you see my screen or not yet?
Not yet.
All right. Let me know when you see it.
There we go, Julie.
All right, here we go.
We are appreciative of this opportunity to share what English language arts instruction looks like at Scania Elementary School. Before we get started, allow us to share with you our Fall A reading benchmark data. We use the 60th percentile as our main benchmark. The reason we use the 60th percentile is there is a strong correlation between students who achieve at or above the 60th percentile to meet standards on our MCAs, which is our Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment that is taken in our upper grades. As you are all well aware, the beginning of this school year presented some challenges and obstacles as we shifted learning models several times this school year. Despite those shifts, our students are still growing and still learning, as you can see, with the increased percentage of students who are meeting at or above the 60th percentile this winter. While we have yet to take the A rating assessment this spring, we are extremely optimistic that we will see students demonstrate even more growth than in the first half of the school year. All of our students take the A reading assessment 3 times a year. This allows us to track the individual progress of each individual student and tailor the instruction to meet the individual needs. You may be wondering, what is happening in the classrooms at Scandia that facilitates the growth of our students in the area of English language arts? Let us show you. Literacy Footprints is our core instructional resource. It is a research-based comprehensive program based off of the guided reading framework. Each student meets with their classroom teacher in a small group multiple times each week.
Here we go. Look at the link. The letter is starting the word no. L. What? Uppercase or lowercase? Uppercase. It's our first letter. It's our line leader. Here we go. I'm going to write it on my board. Look at the. L is our uppercase. Okay, remember with your K, karate kick in, karate kick out. I'm excited to tell you about our Jan Richardson here in kindergarten. The biggest thing I've noticed with Jan is that my kiddos are getting to read different books, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and then they're getting to practice sight words that they're finding inside those texts. And then there's a writing component. That has been my favorite part of Jan, where they're getting a book, they're reading it, practicing it, and then on day 2, they're writing about it. And I have seen so much growth with my kindergartners. They're saying a sentence, they're counting how many words are in it, and then they're actually writing those sentences. And they have a journal that they keep, and they're so proud of it. So Jan has been great not only for the reading component, but for writing as well.
What I love about Jan Richardson is how much my students love Jan Richardson. They get super excited for the books, the fiction and nonfiction. They're always the nonfiction are topics that they're really excited about, and the fictional stories are stories that they really care about. And I've really noticed a growth in my students in our discussions about reading, but also when they write about reading. They're really critically thinking about what they've read and responding to it via writing.
In addition to our core literacy program, teachers use supplemental resources to tailor instruction for students based off of multiple data points and observations in the classroom. Our data shows phonemic awareness as an area of focus. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate sounds. We use a variety of Heggerty resources to provide direct instruction on phonemic awareness. Let's take a look at a kindergarten classroom using the Heggerty resource.
Have, gave. Side. I love it. Say as what at the beginning the word is we. You know why? Say I. And at the beginning the word is I. Say and at the beginning the word is so. A new phoneme or a new sound is going to come in. Say the word my. Change to the word is tie. Say the word tie. Change to the word is tie. School is fun. School is fun. School is fun. I have a new cat. I have a new cat. I'm excited to tell you about Heggerty. We just started it in kindergarten this year, and it's new for them and it's new for me, and it's been learning together. With Heggerty, my greatest thing that I've noticed is that the kiddos are moving their body as they're learning. It's hands-on, where they're moving along with the literacy skill that they're talking about. One of their favorites has been the ending sound activity, where we stretch the word and we make that last sound really strong. And I've noticed kindergartners doing it on their independent work. I can see them at their desk, thinking about it, making that final sound, adding it into their work. And I've also had kiddos come up to me during free choice or on the playground and will say, Mrs. Holmgren, we just did Haggerty. Whether it's they're doing the parts and clapping it or the hand motion for that final sound, they're excited about it. And I'm seeing great growth in their work. So I'm excited we implemented Haggerty this year.
Let's move from phonemic awareness to phonics. Phonics instruction focuses on the relationship of spoken sounds and the letters or groups of letters that make those sounds.
What sound would that make? A. So today, if we hear the A sound, we know that we can make that with A-I. B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, S, T. Those are the letters you should have. Now, my friend's name is Sal. Pearl, will you stretch it for us? Oh, Sal. Sal. Ooh, Sal. Seeing some friends going into their desks. Eli, will you go to the board and build Sal? The name Sal for us? Can you step out of the way so people can check their work? And why did you flip it over and write a capital S for Sal? It's a name, it's a specific name. You're going to switch one letter in Sal to spell sat. I sat at my desk. Pearl, as a teacher helper, will you stretch it for us? Oliver, will you go to the board and switch one letter in Sal to spell sat? Awesome, check your work. Oliver, you did two things. You switched the letters at the end, and why did you flip the S back? It's not a specific name, it's a verb. Excellent. One thing I love using with my second graders is making words. And what I love about this phonics program is it's very hands-on. We're finding that a lot of students need multisensory when they're learning how to read. And so this program lets them hear it, but then also use their very own letter tiles to build the words as they're hearing and manipulating those sounds. Often, each lesson or group of lessons will focus on one particular phonics pattern, like the long A sound, A. And it will focus on that for 10 lessons. But what I really like about it is it will spiral in old concepts that we did in previous lessons. So the kids are always getting that great review. And another thing I really like about it, because each student has their own letter tiles, I'm able to check in with each of my students as I'm doing a whole group lesson. And right away, I can see if they're building the words correctly and hearing those sounds correctly. So it's a great check-in. And finally, the last thing that I really like is it allows each student to practice individually. But the way the lesson's organized is we come back together, whole group on our big board with our big letter tiles, and different students get a chance to be the teacher and teach the words and the concepts back to the class. Again, so it goes from me modeling, the students doing it on their own, and getting that immediate feedback as students take turns being the teacher and manipulating the letters and sounds. Quack went to look for mother duck. Quack looked in the field. Polar bears have 2 layers of fur to keep them warm. Their fur looks white or tan, but their hair is actually hollow and transparent. Their coat provides camouflage, making it harder for their prey to see them coming. The sun rose, spreading its bright fingers over the hills in the sleeping villages. Roosters crowded, goats bleated, and wisps of smoke floated up from kitchen fires. Hunger gnawed at my belly like a begging dog. I cut my long and dry slice of the bread into 9 equal pieces. I forced myself to chew each one 32 times before swallowing. Long gone were the days when I crammed 3 slices of bread slathered in molasses into my mouth before running off to school.
As you can see, our amazing staff are skilled and equipped to meet the needs of each learner. We are in year 1 of implementing new resources and are already seeing amazing growth. We are confident that the skills our students gain will continue to increase in future years.
So there was just a little glimpse and a short little 15-minute snippet of ELA instruction at Scandia. As I mentioned earlier, I would love for you guys to come in. So hopefully in the future we can get to that point. So this is an open-ended invitation for you to come in anytime in the future and see our kids in action, because they truly are amazing. You saw a couple of different resources I wanted to highlight with making words, and I wanted to highlight with the Hegarty stuff. You notice that those were whole group instruction times that I showed you, because our data showed that the majority of the kids in that class did need an extra boost in that area. So it's really nice that they're versatile. They can be done with a small group or the whole class, depending on what our data says. So the data really drives what we are doing there. Another thing I wanted to highlight is you heard me mention MCAs, because I think that's the most common known thing is the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, but those are only taken in grades 3+. So when you are an elementary building, it's really nice to have something like the FAST-A Reading Comprehensive Assessment, so we can truly see how our kindergartners can tie into those goals. The other thing we really like using about our FAST assessments is they're truly a growth measure. They take a kid's starting point and they measure the growth from where they're at here, mid-year, and end of year, where the MCA is a proficiency measure. So that is looking for end of the year standards at each grade level. So they measure in 2 different ways. So those are just a couple little things that I wanted to highlight after the video. Any questions for me?
I see Member Olson has her hand up.
Oh, Julie, that was an excellent video. Very exciting kindergarten. Kindergarten has come a long way, let me tell you that. I wondered if this was district-wide. Are we using this in all kindergartens?
Yeah, we are using that. And so you heard the teachers reference Jan Richardson instead of Literacy Footprints. So Literacy Footprints was actually created by 2 teachers and is very, very research-based. And so Jan Richardson is the main author of that. So when they talk about Jan Richardson, they're actually talking about Literacy Footprints, which is the name of the program. Hegarty is something that I brought with me from New Ulm. We saw really good results as we had similar data with areas of growth in phonemic awareness and phonics, and we saw very similar results to what I'm seeing now, even though they're 2 very different buildings with 2 very different sets of kids. Again, it's something that's very research-based, very specific, direct, explicit instruction, and that is being implemented elsewhere in the district as well. Another research that we had brought in from my old district is by David Kilpatrick, and it's a another thing, it's very similar to Hegarty, but it's a shorter time frame. So Hegarty lessons are usually 10 to 15 minutes. Kilpatrick is more of a 2-minute intervention. So it's a way to start small groups. You saw Jenny Helmgren with a small group of kids who are writing there. So Kilpatrick is an intervention that you would do like in the beginning of that block of time. So there are a variety of different resources that we've implemented this year that are definitely catching on in other parts of the district as we are seeing great success with them.
All right, Member Tyson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Julie, that was just such an exciting piece to watch. Wow. All that multisensory, that just really clicks with kids, doesn't it?
It really does.
And it just seems like this is really your area of expertise amongst many, but wow. I just have a question about MSBA and the Center for Applied Research with the U of M. They talked a lot about letters.
Mm-hmm.
And I know legislature has some training for letters. How is letters incorporated into your work here?
Great question. So right now, our academic coaches are the main people who are going through letters training, so our literacy coaches, and they're passing on that knowledge to our teachers. And so in Jenny Helmgren's part of her video, in the background, when I was kind of up close with some of the kiddos, in the background, you might have noticed there were some pictures on the wall of mouths and different formations. Those are sound walls, and those come right from letters, where in the past you might have seen letter walls or sight words. So instead of having the letter A, now it's showing the mouth formation of A because that visual piece is added to it. I'm very familiar with letters as it's something we implemented in my last district for a couple of years as well. Letters also, so it has that basic phonemic awareness phonics component of it, but letters actually has a second part of their series that we dabbled a little bit in my last district last year. And that's more for your upper grades, that comprehension and fluency component. So letters is really another amazing resource. And I know the district is digging in and offering even more letters training for staff next year. I have encouraged staff in my building, as Diane has sent out emails saying, hey, this is a great opportunity. You guys know I'm super passionate about this. And we have a lot of staff that are super on board.
Well, you must be so proud of your staff. It seems like they are so on fire with this as well and just embrace the work. And the students are just like, the energy in the classroom was just like amazing. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Of
Great,
course.
excellent to watch.
Yeah, the staff really are second to none. They are truly amazing. They are passionate and they are so caring. When you talk about the strengths of a community school, community is the perfect way to describe Scandia, which you all know so well. And our students, they are the rock stars. They're the ones doing the work. And it's just so cool to see where they come. I don't know if you recall or not, but my teaching career, most of it was in kindergarten. So those littles are my passion area. And I actually think that it'd be really cool if every teacher could teach kindergarten, because if you can teach kids how to read, you can do anything. So yeah, it's truly an amazing place. And we are so proud of what we're doing.
Well, we're so
Julie
happy to have
mentioned-
you at Scandia. Thank you so much.
Julie mentioned our academic support specialist and our literacy coaches. You'll recall that those were additions that were funded through our referendum. So again, the referendum playing dividends in so many ways continuously throughout the districts as the year moves forward.
All right, does anybody have any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, I would just add real quick that it was about this time last year that we introduced Julie to you as she was moving herself into the district. And Julie brings an incredible expertise in this area. Member Tyson, as you mentioned, but we expect and we have in place in all of our elementaries a deep knowledge and skill set around the science of teaching reading. Our literacy coaches, our academic support people, Director Georgie, the whole team is rallying around this work around literacy and teaching reading, especially at the young grades. It's an area that needed a big boost, and you can see the boost that is happening. And with Julie's video, you can see it in action.
Well, I wanted to say I really appreciated the movement. As someone who still struggles to sit still for a long period of time, that opportunity for those kids to move in the class while they're learning is so important to some kids. To some kids, that makes the difference. So
Yeah, and absolutely. And the brain research would say all kids. I'm kind of a brain research junkie, if you will. I love that kind of stuff. And that your right and left hemisphere are connected by something called the corpus callosum. And that movement really strengthens that corpus callosum, which is really where everything ignites and fires off. So really, there isn't a kid that doesn't benefit from that multisensory.
Good to hear. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you so much, Julie. It was nice to see inside a classroom this year. It's been a while. So
yes, thank you guys very much for the opportunity. I do appreciate it. And I do hope once we're back in person and restrictions are lifted a little bit more that you do take me up on my offer and join us out at Scandia.
Thank you, Julie.
Will do. Thanks, Julie.
all right, with that, we will move on to the winter sports update with Activity Director Mike Hennon. Mike?
Welcome. Fortunate to be here. Thank you for having me. Fortunate to lead a great group of students, great advisors, great coaches. They sure make me look good all the time. So very blessed, like I tell you, every time I come on here to be here and to be in this position. I truly love what I do. And the students we have here make it that so much enjoyable. So with that, I'll get on to a little presentation here. I got a little slideshow of our winter highlights. I left some stuff off because I didn't want to brag too much, but we did real good. So I'm going to see if this works here. So anything showing up yet for you?
Yep. Mike, we're good.
All right. So we lead off of Ronnie there. So we'll start state debate. They got through the year. They never actually had to pause when we had to pause because everything they did was virtual. So they were in front of a Google Meet or a stream of some sort and competing. We had two state entrants, Ishan Patel and Cassidy Inks. They both qualified in Lincoln Douglas. And Ishan did well enough to earn all state. So very good job with them. Didn't get to see them this year because, again, they actually did all their stuff from home. All their meets are right in their own home. And their head coach was Rachel De Sabrino, who was a state entrant 2 years ago for us. Finished third in state that year. So. Speech state qualifiers just happened a couple weekends ago. Luke Osterkamp and Creative Expression was all state. And then we had Annika Haley and Nicole Thayer, who qualified for the state tournament in speech. Their head coach is Tim Newcomb. Again, all their meets were virtual also. They actually came up to the school and we put one person in each room. And even some of the duels we had, they weren't in the same room, but they dueled on the screen next to each other and talked to each other next to each other. So it was kind of cool how they figured it out. They wanted the reliability of the internet at the school. So they came up every Saturday for their meets and rented out a whole wing of the school and each person went in their own room. So. History Day state qualifiers just happened. Jaden Fiedler, Nicole Thayer, Grace Jasinski, she was honorable mention down there. Andrew Valentini was in fourth place, and Christian Matson all qualified for History Day state tournament. And Andrew placed the highest out of those. But we have two advisors or two coaches for those, Patrick Wiggin and Bill Bagaman coached those two. Girls basketball, I think the third time in 4 years, they've been Section 7 4A champions. So they qualified for state, ran into Hopkins in the first round, but really represented our school, had a great year. They ended up 17-3 over the year, so did a good job. And their head coach was Jen Wagner. Nice story about her, and she battled cancer at the beginning of the year. Never lost a step. She was taking radiation and all kinds of things during the season and never missed a practice, never missed a game. So kudos to her and her resilience that she has. What a great role model for those ladies to look up to and see how she can fight and get through that. So that was really cool to see. Super regional qualifier. We did everything a little bit different this year. For the section champs, there weren't section champs per se. The top two teams in each section qualified for what they call the super regional qualifier. The goal of the Minnesota High School League was try to keep 4 schools at a time at a site. So we were one of those. So we qualified for that, which is really cool. Their head coach, Joe Kuchar. Boys swim state qualifier. Max True in the breaststroke. He broke his own record in the Section 7 AA record in breaststroke, school record. Did a very good job. Max been to state 3 times in the breaststroke, so it was really cool. And 3 that I know of, I guess, through 3 years I've been here, he's made it. I apologize if Max is watching this. I'm sure he's not. If I missed a freshman year earlier, he made it. His head coach is Don Mancini. He's a teacher down at wonderful Scandia. Alpine state champion, Zach Trotto, was a section champion, but also he was a state champion up at Biwabik this year. So that was really, really cool. First year of the Star Tribune Alpine Skier of the Year. The first year ever happened. They added that this year, and Zach was fortunate enough to be chosen for that from Jim Paulson. So that was really cool. And his head coach was Trevor Pineski. Derek Cardinal finished an illustrious career. He's a 4-time state champ for us. He won at 132 and actually cut down to 132 where there were 2 other state champions there. Wanted to challenge himself. I think he could have went at a different weight and might have had a little easier path to get in there, but he went down there, and there was a 3-time state champ there that he never got the chance to wrestle. He actually lost before he got to Derek, but Derek, wasn't looking for the easy way out. He went down there to take him on, and also went down to 132 because that's where his team needed him. So he was planning on going 138 when the year started. So kind of gives you a little bit of the character of Derek and what he's all about. He was named the Minnesota Wrestling Coaches Association. They call it Mr. Minnesota, which is the best senior wrestler in the state of Minnesota. So he won that. A year ago, he was also the Star Tribune Wrestler of the Year. So pretty good career for him. We had 3 other state qualifiers. We had senior Tyler Rawway, got all the way to the finals at 195 and finished in 2nd place. Jacob Aho actually was wrestling with a broken thumb. He broke his thumb right away and actually taped it to his hand and ended up in 4th place at 119. So pretty tough kid there. He's a sophomore, so looking for great things for him coming back. And then freshman Parker Leiden was a state entrant at 106. Boys Nordic skiing ended up 2nd place in the state. Real fun to go up there and watch those guys ski. They did a fantastic job. They always represent Forest Lake with class and integrity. They really get after it. Really fun. Obviously, they're Section 4 champs, and we had 4 All-State. So Noah Erickson, Drew Sampson, Ethan Hebert, and Jonathan Hooter that were all All-State. And we have alumni coaching that also. Our head coach for the 2nd year was Ryan Wright. Was a state champion last year as a head coach and 2nd place this year. Not too bad of a resume for him. Girls, first state championship for our girls Nordic team. So that was really excited. They were they're up there and they're putting the wax on and trying to figure out what to put on for wax. And they were all complaining that the wax wasn't great. They couldn't get any kick. And Ryan is like almost in tears. He goes, and they went out and they started the race. And he goes, I don't know. The wax is working great for me. I don't know. And he goes, he came back in afterwards. I think I messed this up in the classic part of the race, which is where they need the kick. We just kicked everybody. So he was actually almost in tears, and he did a great job. He's our tester for the wax and got it just perfect. All state for them, Jordan Parent, Ella Niznik, Amelia Howard, Annabelle Stang. And again, Ryan is our head coach for the girls also. He was 2nd last year. The girls were 1st this year. So he's got a bright future. The girls only lose one skier from this year. So we're looking for great things for them coming back next year. So gymnastics qualified for state as a Section 7 AA champions, and they ended up in 2nd place. Again, with the split dates, they had 4 schools at one time. So when we went in, we were actually in 1st place after that morning session. When we went in, we got done, I think, about 2:00 when we took off out of there. We stopped and got some ice cream and actually came back up to the high school and the media center and put it on the big screen and watched the other 4 schools go. So that was pretty fun. But they had a remarkable year. They just got better and better all year round. So that was really cool for them to finish section place. Their head coach, Lindsay Perron, which is a teacher at Forest Lake Elementary, I think, or Forest View, one of those. Individual state champions in gymnastics, Claire O'Gorman was a floor state champion. She was 2nd in all around down at state, and she placed 4th in both the vault and the bars. So she's a senior. We're really going to miss her, but what a great way to end her career here as a Ranger. And Keely Cisco Jr. was our beam state champion. So that was really cool to see. Her face right there, her smile, she can fall off the beam 3 times and she still smiles like that. And I think that's what makes her such a great gymnast. Nothing really bothers her. So that was really cool to see. All right. So it was fantastic, fun, fast winter. We all started in January 4th. Everybody started at the same time, which was tough. All the registrations were coming in at the same time. All the questions, all the events started at the same time, and the same thing at the end. Everything ended at the same time. So it was running from one event to the next event. I remember going from wrestling. We had a regional here, and I was up at Bowabic watching Zach ski. Came back for that. Went back to Bowabic, and then I had the shot in between there on a Friday, so I had to come back again and get my first doses of the shot and then fly back. So I went back and forth to Bowabic 3 days in a row to watch those kids take off. So that was pretty exciting. It was a tiring winter with everything starting and stopping about the same time. But the true champions, our coaches, our kids, we made it through. We had no shutdowns, we had no major issues with the COVID-19 and all of that stuff. And that was a kudos to, our protocols that their coaches were enforcing, on our benches and in their practice and keeping things going. So I really appreciate all the effort that they put into that. So that was our true championship that we got a season. And, obviously spring sports are going now, and we didn't have that last year. So.
Say, Mike, you gave credit to your coaches, and rightfully so. Boys basketball didn't make it to the state tournament, but you have a retiring head basketball coach after a long, long career.
Yeah. So Dan Carmesino, he retired from teaching a year ago, and now he's retired from coaching. So after the season, he decided that, and he, and I think maybe he was thinking about it that first week of practice with the COVID protocols and all that stuff. He's like, oh, it's kind of, what am I doing? I'm not seeing my grandkids right now. I'm staying away from them because I'm with these kids and I don't want to bring anything around. But, they did a good job with the protocols, as everybody did. And what a great career he had. He's made the state tournament. He's just a good, positive role model for all our adult males. So really, really good job, and a fantastic teacher too. Yeah. Anything you guys have questions for me? Gail, you got a hand up or no? Is that from last time?
It's Julie. No, I just wanted to thank Mike. All that what you show, your support of the students and the coaches. I mean, that really shows as a great athletic director. So I just want to thank you, because it's a lot of time and energy that you put into it, and it does really show. And the parents and, like I said, the students really appreciate it. So, and I'm so happy that they didn't have a lot of COVID issues with the teams, because they had it so hard as it is, and if they would have even multiplied that would just been so hard for these athletes and parents. So thank you for all your good work and support for all the athletics. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Member Corcoran. I see Member Olson has her hand up.
Oh, well said, Julie. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciated the video, the video that you showed us. Normally, if we were in person, I think you would have them come into the boardroom, but I think you should continue with the video going forward. It's really fun to see them in action when we can't get to some of those events. I had a question. What is History Day?
Yeah, I was afraid somebody was going to ask me that. I'll be honest with you, and maybe Steve knows better than me. I don't really know.
Fair
enough.
I think
they do presentations. I think they pick like a topic and they present, but don't quote me on that.
Well, Mike, you're right, and it's only been the last couple of years. Bill Baggerman got us started with that and has a real passion for that. So the cool thing is it taps into another area of interest for kids who may not be in a gym or a pool or a rink, but have a way to get involved and meet other kids and compete. So it's another neat activity for us.
Member Tyson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Mike, I just want to concur with Member Olson and Member Corcoran that you just light up when you give these reports, and I can tell that you know these kids, because you're like, look at her smile there. She falls down 3 times and she's still smiling. So, and the parents have said that you're just there at the swim meets, you're right on the deck, and so that means a lot to the kids to have somebody that's so engaged. But I had one question for you. I follow a lot of them, but I started following the gymnastics on Instagram. And that was an incredible season for our gymnastics program, wasn't it?
It was so fun. You take a look, we had Stillwater actually 3 times in our gym, and Stillwater was ranked, I think, 2 or 3 in the state most of the year. And we lost to them twice early on. And the kids were just, their goal when they went to state was to try to place, get more points than them. And they blew them out of the water at state. They were so relaxed at state. It was so cool that they could do that. And you looked at them, they didn't even, I couldn't believe it. The coaching staff had them ready. The kids were just, I don't know. We had hardly any falls. I think we had one slip and it was Keeley who slipped on the floor a little bit, and she just kind of smiled and shrugged it off and came back and won a beam right after it. So, so very, very, it was really cool. And
That's
such
incredible.
Great kids, great coaches. They were so excited, to stop and ice cream afterwards, and you really get to know them there and just watch them interact with each other, very supportive of each other. It's a great team culture that they have going there. So hopefully they can keep that going. And part of it is the new facility we have down there, and the bond that some of you guys were part of and getting going. We hosted every meet at home because nobody else could have fans in their gyms because they were too small. So we opened up 2 field houses and really spread it out and spaced ourselves out. We had sections there. So every meet we had this year was at home. So, and I was like, yeah, we'll do that. And we don't have to worry about quarantine a bus or anything like that. We'll be at home. So that worked out perfect for us that way too. So that really was really cool. Kudos to whoever got that bond pass before I got here. And our thing on your facilities, we've been hosting some basketball tournaments here. Everybody that comes in is so amazed and so impressed. And I keep telling them, wait until we get to the stadium and these other turf fields and everything going outside, and then we'll be impressed. And I did throw the stadium back there, and I got that hanging up behind me here. So real excited. I got a great office where I can look out and I can see all the dirt getting moved. And I walk out there probably 3-4 times a day, and they're probably sick of me, but I don't care. They actually told me, I've seen you as an AD more than I've seen anybody else at a construction site. And I ask questions and try to figure out what they're doing. So I'm fortunate that the staff and the district staff lets me be involved in all that planning and all those decisions and stuff like that. So, and to your point, I love being at this stuff. And everybody always says, well, why are you there every night, or what are you doing? I said, the best part of the job is watching our students do their stuff. And if I felt like it was a job, I wouldn't be there because it's not a great job. And you look at hours, you start figuring out how many hours you put in. You don't want to start doing that. And if you think those hours are a job, you're in the wrong profession. It's not a very good profession if you're going to start counting your hours. But if you get to see the relationships and reactions of all these kids and watch them grow up as they come from a freshman all the way up to their seniors, that's what it's all about. So that's a truly rewarding position for sure. So.
Well, thanks for all you do, Mike. And it wasn't an easy year being the pandemic times, and to have all these wonderful highlights is just frosting on the cake. So
yeah, so it was a fun winter. So hopefully we can finish it off with a great spring here too.
Member Luthner, I see you have your hand up.
I do. I just want member Tyson and I actually both attended a training a couple weeks ago, and they had us go through an exercise about identifying what makes a really great school. And there was like 57 bullet points that we were supposed to choose 3. And then as a group, decide what are the top 3. So we looked at it from a lot of different perspectives. And across the board, there were a lot of people who, as parents, as administration, as different viewpoints, that the extracurriculars are very, very important to a district. And I think that's what sets apart a lot of the great districts, is having a strong extracurricular, and that's everything, the sports. And I appreciate that you put in history and debate and all the other things that are in the Minnesota leagues, that we not just participate, we achieve high marks. And I hope that is dominates the social media and the marketing on some of the things, because this is a great start to send these kids out with confidence, with the extra skills they get outside the classroom, with the knowledge that even with a pandemic, we can just pivot and still make it work, and do it with masks, or do it in pods, or do it with strange buses. So it was a really great example that we as a district, which is fantastic, and obviously your leadership and passion for it just plays through. So I hope that the kids that are watching that are normally with us understand how great a gift this is moving forward if they're finishing high school or moving on to college or the rest of their life. So many kids look back on this as like the highlight of their time. So thank you for giving them so much of your energy, and hopefully we can keep it up and do even better next year.
Yeah, me too. So appreciate it, Kate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Member Luthner. Member Corcoran?
I just really have to say thank you to Dan Cremasino. I'm sorry. Thanks, Steve, for saying that. I mean, I've known Dan a long time and all his leadership in basketball over the years. Long time I've known him. So all his great, enthusiasm and love of the game has really came through with his athletes over the years. So I just want to make sure that I really sent out a great thank you to him for his many years of service, and wish him well on his future and with his grandchildren and spending time. I mean, basketball is a long, long season, as we all know, many, many months and all summer. So he's going to have some free time. So it'll be good to see how he uses that. So, but thanks again. I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Yeah, he's spending a lot of time with his grandkids, so he's pretty excited about that. He's going to be a great grandpa. He is a great grandpa. I'm not going to say he's going to be easy. He is a great grandpa. So,
all right. Any other comments? All right. Hearing nothing. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the winter athletes who achieved so much this winter. We'll move on to blended learning update. Dr. Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. What we have learned through the pandemic, to actually be fair, we've been starting blended learning and Ranger Online discussions and planning prior to the pandemic and all things distance learning at times. But we've learned some things, and Brad Ward and Jim Caldwell are here to give us an update on their planning as we begin to roll forward with blended learning and Ranger Online and capturing all the things that we've learned through the pandemic. So Brad and Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Massey. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the rest of the board. We will jump right into the presentation. I will run it. Brad and I will sort of go back and forth, and he'll give me the high sign when it's time to switch to a new screen. All right. Are we there?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in reference to what Steve had said earlier on this starting, if you look back in the board minutes, you would see that Ranger Online was given as a board topic during the March board meeting right before the pandemic. And here we are. So now go ahead, Jim.
All right. So Ranger Online and blended learning often get confused with each other. They are two totally separate topics. We're going to jump right into blended learning to start. A brief definition: combining online and face-to-face instruction in order to personalize and differentiate the content, pace, and difficulty of instruction for each student. Blended learning is a practice that can take place in any traditional face-to-face classroom at any time. And I think the key there is that it's in a face-to-face classroom. Blended learning is not online learning, and it is not hybrid learning either. A couple summers ago, our assistant principals, Jeff Cavett, Haley Lang, and Mr. Miller, came up with a blended learning task force, and they really had 4 goals: to use blended learning strategies to inform district strategic plan with college and career resources, the PBIS and PLC work, to determine definitions of key terms and concepts, to recommend best practices and competencies for blended and personalized learning, and then to recommend an implementation framework for blended learning in the classroom. As you can imagine, with COVID, the framework that we laid out totally got thrown out the window a year ago. As soon as we went to COVID and we had distance learning and home learning and trying to learn in a hybrid situation here, blended learning sort of got put on the back burner. But we have an incredible opportunity here next year, and with the restrictions being lifted and everything, we are looking forward to next year. The blended learning roadmap that you see in front of you, we should be moving in years 3 to 5 this next year. But because of the pandemic, we're sort of bouncing. We have some teachers that are in phase 1. We have others that are ready to go into phase 2. But to be 100% honest, we have a lot of learning and relearning that we have to do with blended learning. But it's a huge opportunity to bring the great things that we've learned through Canvas, distance learning, and home learning into the classroom. So next year, when all of our students are back in front of us, we actually are moving forward using the stuff that we've learned that's positive. There's a lot of great things that have come out of COVID. The mental health and things like that are the not so good things, but the learning strategies that we have learned and can put into blended learning are going to be critical. Then we have online learning. Online learning, all teaching and learning takes place on the internet with flexible access for students to content and instruction. High school level Ranger Online courses will be offered for students interested in pursuing online learning. The biggest key there is it's online. There is not day-to-day communication face-to-face with an instructor. It is almost like an independent course, but with lots of supports put in place. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Ward to go over sort of the foundation of Ranger Online and how we got to where we're at.
Thanks, Jim. One of the first things that we had to do as a part of our online learning application that needed to be approved by the state was to craft a mission statement. And so taking input from other administrators and from other teachers and students, we came up with this. By empowering students through a flexible and innovative learning environment, Ranger Online will provide students an opportunity to learn using a more personalized environment. Now, you'll notice in this that both flexible and innovative are in italics, and it's really key for the online school. Flexibility implies time and place and space for students. So it's not going to be requiring them to be on at a certain time. It's flexible to fit their needs. Innovative is something that's also really key. And I think the pandemic and emergency learning that we've been engaged in for just over a year really highlighted that. And that is, what is the pedagogy that the teachers are going to use? How are they going to connect with students? How are they going to provide the content, yet do that allows for student inquiry? Those are a couple of the real keys as we move forward. One of the things that it's important is to look at where this falls under the umbrella of Forest Lake Area Schools. Ranger Online is within the high school, and it's an online learning that matches any of the courses that are already there. This is different than credit recovery. Credit recovery has been in the district for a long time and has been under the ALC and now community school with Kelly Lafine and her staff administering that. Both are going to be able to coexist because they are reaching different needs. You can go to the next one. And so our timeline, like many timelines the past year and a half, has had to be altered in order to meet the changing environment. So we were approved in March of 2020 as a supplemental provider of online learning. What that means is that students do not graduate with a Ranger Online diploma. In order to do that, you would have to be what's called a comprehensive school. We are supplemental, which means that we offer the courses that we either are ready to teach or we determine that there's a need for. This can be taken by any student anywhere. And we have different mechanisms for whether it's a student that's already enrolled at Forest Lake High School, or whether it's going to be a student from another local neighboring school or charter school, private school, doesn't matter. We have mechanisms in place for that. So the timeline included a year ago, the first cohort that was led by Bruce Leventhal of teachers learning online pedagogy. There was a second cohort in the summer, and now he's kicking off a third one right now. A little bit later, we'll talk about the changes that have been put in place with that. The website is under the high school and teaching and learning, and that went live in March. Student interest form was sent in April, and according to our application, we can begin as early as July 1. Those kinds of settings, whether it's July 1 or September, depends upon the course and the student need.
And this is an example of a PDF that we created with the help of Renee Reedy. And this was sent out via Facebook and emailed to all secondary students, 8th grade and up, at both the community school, the middle school, and high school, as an educational piece and an informational piece for families to look at. In there, it was linked to our informational form, which you can see here. That form is now live. We have 22 students and families that have expressed interest at this point in Ranger Online. And what we're really waiting for is enough students in one of our classes from our teachers that are trained in order to kick off our first class. And we're getting very, very close. Another marketing piece that is in the pipeline is we're working with Renee to put together a postcard that we can send out to all of our residents of Forest Lake on Ranger Online, and possibly do some kind of a webcast or a podcast to help with the educational piece and answer anybody's questions. The teacher preparation piece. Ranger Online will be taught by Forest Lake area school employees, Minnesota licensed teachers. Each Ranger Online teacher will complete an online instructor onboarding course and receive direct support from one of our district instructional coaches. During this process, teachers will be immersed in FLAS learning management system, which is Canvas, providing teachers firsthand experience as online learners. Teachers will be trained on online teaching best practices framed by 4 essential PLC questions. Initially, teachers will be modifying current Forest Lake area schools approved courses for delivery in a full-time digital movement. We're not just taking our Canvas courses that our teachers are using now with our students. They're tweaking them to meet that definition that we showed earlier about Ranger Online and online learning, because it's truly an experience that students will do at home, self-guided, with a ton of support. And I would be remiss if I did not do a shout out to Mr. Bruce Leventhal. Bruce has been critical to getting our teachers online, along with the support from Diane Georgie, who Diane, as you know, is retiring and will be replaced by Mr. Jacobson, who also supports this work as well. So between all of those, we would not be able to kick this off where we're at. And it definitely took a team effort between Brad, myself, the superintendent, director of teaching and learning, and the other principals. So with that, any questions?
Member Olson?
Jim, what would a blended learning schedule look like?
Blended learning, our schedule would stay the same. So I always pick on my own son. So William would go through his normal schedule here at the high school, but the teachers, each teacher will be incorporating blended learning concepts into their classrooms. So as he walks into his history course, some days they may be working in classroom, in groups, things like that. Other days, the teacher would have a blended learning lesson going on where they may differentiate and have some of the kids in front of them doing remediation. Some may be doing extensions. Some may be doing research. You wouldn't have to keep all of your students in front of you, though. You could have those groups moving all around the school. The nice thing about blended learning, and it goes back to the bond and the levy that we just passed in all of these construction projects, blended learning is going to allow us to use every nook and cranny of this high school the way that it was designed to be used. With all of our flex spaces, our modern library, the one-to-one devices that students bring, it's really encompassing all of those educational pieces.
Jim, touch on how Canvas and our learning curve, especially this year, just builds that capacity for us.
Yes, that's one of the actual positive things that came out of COVID. Our learning curve in Canvas was straight up a cliff. And hats off to our educators and our instructional coaches. They climbed that cliff very, very, very quickly. Canvas is integral in laying all of this out so students can not only access the blended learning activities in the classroom. If I happen to be gone for a day, which, as you can imagine, as we come out of the pandemic, we're going to be telling families, don't come to school when you have a sniffle anymore. Stay home until you feel better. Those students are going to stay better connected to their classrooms now than they ever had. And it also allows our teachers to differentiate right inside the classroom with the activities in Canvas as well.
Member Olson, did you have a follow-up? Okay, then we'll go to Member Tyson.
Jim, great report. So the blended learning is classroom and the online is completely independent and done at home, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
So I remember Mr. Ward in Curriculum and Equity Committee talking about the online instruction. We've actually been working on that for a while, right? So do we have an adequate number of teachers that are interested in engaging in the online learning?
Yes, right now I'm at about 14 teachers that have gone through and are ready and are actually working on courses. And we have even more teachers. Mr. Leventhal actually is just getting ready to publish, I think, version 3 of his online learning class that the teachers have to go through. He keeps adapting his, and as those teachers finish, they're in that pipeline to create and modify their courses. There's a financial incentive for our teachers to do this. Online learning, each student, if you're taking classes above and beyond your normal course load at the high school, it's $450 per half credit. With 10 students, as soon as we have 10 students, we break even because the teacher's getting a stipend of about $4,500 to teach that course. And keep in mind, this is open to not only Forest Lake High School students, this is open to students across the state of Minnesota. So schools that don't have courses like AP Biology, we're going to be able to offer those courses through Ranger Online and give them access through our instructors. Mm-hmm. And that will bring revenue into our school district.
And that's the absolute exciting part of it, that it's, it's for statewide, for any student that wants to come and take advantage of all of our coursework. So kudos to getting this off the ground, and thank you for the great report.
Thank you.
I think I'll jump in next.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yes, I was going to you, Member Luthner. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. You answered one of my questions, because that was, what about kids who need to stay home? And so they will still be able to have a lot more access, but not the same as like right now where they literally see their classrooms daily, right?
Well, let's not confuse distance learning with Ranger Online. They're two totally separate.
Yes.
Separate things. So kids that need to stay home, we would be providing their education through different means. Kids that choose to take Ranger Online, they could supplement that for a class that they're taking during the school day, and choose not to come to class or not to come to school and work on that at home. But we would want to utilize other intervention strategies for students that are choosing to stay home or have to stay home because of medical reasons or things like that.
Okay, so that there's probably going to be a third or fifth or 12th different way to do things depending on how our world evolves. But going back, I've been kind of fortunate to be in the curriculum meetings that have been discussing this. How many steps are we away from having a diploma, like an online earnable diploma that's a Forest Lake area school diploma? So
I think from a high school principal standpoint, we have to get Ranger Online up and running. So we have more and more teachers that are qualified to do that using our Forest Lake curriculum, adapting that. Once we get to that critical mass, that would be a conversation with the superintendent, because we would actually have to probably hire additional staff to make that happen. We could not run them parallel with the same staff that we have currently at the high school.
Okay, so there's intermediary steps, including staffing, but it is in the generalized future that a child could Ranger online and get a high school diploma.
Yeah, and I would say, Kate, the transition from our supplemental Ranger Online program to a comprehensive program would be a really small leap, provided we feel that we've got the capacity to do that, and that's where the need is. Then that transition would be a natural transition. But there's some critical questions that would need to be answered before we make that leap. So this isn't stage one with the plan to go to stage two. We'll evaluate that once we implement it. And then as we analyze the need and the interest, we'll determine whether or not going there makes the most sense.
Right. I appreciate the way it's set up, though, that it could grow in that direction in the way that it's being structured and that it's attached to the high school. And, if it grows and sort of a 5 to 10 year plan, there could be kids that are kindergarten today that could graduate digitally by their choice in potentially 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
If the things are, but we're set up to do that if the business market is there.
Exactly.
Okay. That was my question. And you answered the other ones pretty well too. Because I think as a culture, we are leaning more towards stop telling people to go to school when they're sick. Don't just tough it out. Be flu, strep, pink eye, they can all stay home. But the educational opportunity, really, I'd like to make it an easier choice for kids to stay home and still get the learning in. So, third flavor of learning.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Luthner. Member Corcoran, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question. Is this, when we're talking about the online, is it, you're going to be offering AP classes, did you mention, Jim? So opportunity for advanced placement and...
When teachers are ready to teach those courses and those courses are developed, yes.
Okay.
We will be ready to run AP biology next year.
Perfect. And, I know we'd lose some students at PSEO every year. I'm just wondering if this is something you've been discussing as kind of a way to keep them and still part of the school without losing them to PSEO. That I know is, an option.
This could be a conduit depending on how the University of Minnesota and our other partner colleges view it, but we could theoretically start teaching some of our concurrent enrollment courses and college in the school courses online through us instead of kids going to the colleges. That's one of those steps that I'm not sure the colleges are ready to take yet, but they're feeling the same pinch that the rest of us are, that we have to be more flexible with the way that we do things.
Right. And I like the opportunity that they could still attend school for the classes they need, but also take them online.
Right. And one of the biggest pluses to this program is if I'm a student who really wants to get into our career and tech ed courses, but I also really want to take these AP CIS, or I want to stay in my world language, or I want to stay in my music courses, I can take certain courses through Ranger Online to create room in my schedule, my junior and senior year, to stay here and keep taking our courses. That's what excites me about it, is it just creates, for that driven kid, it creates some flexibility to take courses and not have to not take courses.
Yeah, I know that when my son it was because of music, because the exact reason. It stopped him from taking the class in the sophomore year. He had to take it in junior year because there was enough space in his schedule. So I think that it will definitely alleviate and maybe keep kids in the music program because they can do that then. So I'm sure the music teachers would be happy to hear that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Member Corcoran. Do we have any other questions, comments? All right. Hearing nothing. Thank you, Principal Caldwell and Mr. Ward. Great presentation, and it does help for all the lack of our ability to get to things these days, to get this information and feel what's going on within the district. So I do appreciate the presentation. With that, we will move to positive happenings. Who wants to start out?
I'll start.
Member Olson?
Gail and I attended Freaky Friday, the musical. It was fantastic. I really struggled to see how are they going to make this work on stage, and they did a fantastic job, and the casting was really spot on. So that was fun to see.
All right. Anyone else? Member Tyson, I see you unmuted.
Just
Oh, you're
gonna,
muted.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna go quickly because Jill, yeah, we had more fun going to that. Oh, there was some great laughs and the casting was so good and the singing. And you know how at that age, they're just up there belting it out and it was really impressive. And I just wanted to note one other positive happenings. I got my email, the greenhouse is opening tomorrow. So that's exciting news. Have to get over there.
All right, Member Ketto, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I had one thing that I'll bring up. The about a year ago or more, I did a short consulting session with TEFLA. And in the process, I was invited along the way to join TEFLA on their board, courtesy of Director Massey. And so I have joined the TEFLA board as of this week. And I just want to mention, if you don't already know this, that Linda Madsen, Jennifer Tolzman, Kathy Norquist, and Diane Georgie Olive, I think who we know, are all retiring from the TEFLA board. So there are a number of brand new members who are starting. So I thank you, Steve Massey, for inviting me to join, and that'll be my future along with what I'm.
All right, I think it froze up there at the end, Alex, but Member Luther, you have your hand up?
Yes. So Teacher Appreciation Week. I know we've all been appreciating our teachers and our nurses. It's definitely a week it used to be full of buffets and cookies and COVID pivot. I know I helped out with Lino. We did brunch in a bag and brought it in and hopefully the teachers enjoyed it. It's hard to ever really know how things go, but you know, there's almost nothing we wouldn't do for our teachers. They do so much for our kids. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I did the level 4 MSBA training. So now I'm complete. I have learned all the things that MSBA says we should learn. But it was I took it out of order. But you know, there wasn't really a storyline. But this one was interesting that it was on policy, which is just such an important thing moving into summer planning and new things that we want to do with our strategic plan. So it was very timely. I'm not sure I would have gotten as much out of it if I had taken it just my first year fresh on the board. And then I was in the high school a couple times this week doing proctoring for the AP exams. So it was really great to see how many of our students are taking these college level opportunities and how reasonably balanced by gender these groups were. So you don't have a lot to do as a proctor other than count heads, but it was great to see them so focused, and these are hard exams and they went into it prepared, and everyone was so relieved when they were done. So this week was quite a few exams. It was a busy week at the high school. And I don't know if we actually talked about this last month. Did we talk about the National School Board Conference? Because it technically happened after our meeting last month.
We can do that in reports if we want.
Yeah. I just mentioned that it was a great experience to hear kind of a different blend of everything on a national level when I've been so used to the Minnesota targeted information. So it was nice to see what the whole country is talking about. And that's it.
All right, anyone else? Hearing nothing, I will go. I don't have a lot, but I did get my second COVID vaccine, so I'm excited about that. I got that on Tuesday and had sort of a minimal reaction. It wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't horrific either. So, but with that, we'll move on to reports. Workshops or conferences? Anyone? Member Tyson?
Well, Kate mentioned that we took the level 4 together, and it has been really fun. You know, I have to say during the COVID to be able to just click on and I've taken a lot of MSBA kind of repeats, and I've enjoyed that because you don't have to drive and you don't have to worry about getting there and go to Maple Grove or Roseville or wherever. So anyway, I took it because I was really interested in the community engagement part. So it was on policy, but representing your community through policy and engagement. So there was the exercise that Kate talked about that was really, really hard to do, but it really reveals a lot about your district. So applying that going forward with our strategic plan will be a great knowledge. I just also wanted a quick mention about NSBA. And typically, you know, I think Member Corcoran and I will put like 12,000 steps on by noon, walking all over these humongous convention centers. So taking it sitting down, and Rob's laughing. I mean, it's exhausting. Typically, you walk miles and miles. But anyway, it was an excellent, I have to, you know, compliment the group, NSBA, for doing such a great job. And I really I'm very interested and might attend the symposium, but they've come out with a platform called DIRE, dismantling, I'm going to blank on all the acronym, but dismantling racism. And I think it's just a great platform, institutional racism in education. So I think they're coming out with a pretty strong statement, and they're willing to help, you know, on the state level with school districts doing this work. I took a lot of great courses as well. One on supporting your LGBTQT QT students. One on also on implicit bias, where I learned some new terms that I had never really understood that well. Affinity bias, how, you know, you can favor certain people or students. You can have halos and horns effect. Halo leads to how you really think great things about a student or a person. The horns have the opposite effect. You know, you see them as overweight, so you see them as lazy. I mean, it was just so much good knowledge. And I think, you know, the learning about implicit bias just, for me, never ends, because I think it's such an important thing to revisit on a personal level. Thank you for putting up with my spring allergies here. You know, I think all of the speakers were good. I know Member Olson really liked the last, I always get his name wrong, but I'll talk about the two other ones. Leslie Odom Jr. talked about how he thinks his behaviors were not good in high school. So he talked a lot about how teachers turned his life around for him, and that the arts were important to him, which I think we know that so many students, that's what keeps them going and keeps them motivated. Soledad O'Brien, she does a lot of documentaries, and one that she does is about immigrant workers, and the one daughter was just expected to not succeed, and she really did. She got her college degree. She also, Soledad O'Brien, had biracial parents that lived in Maryland when they were first married, and they were spit on when they walked down the sidewalk, and that is one of her memories that her mother shared with her. So anyway, it was a great conference, and that's my report on that. So thank you for listening.
All right, anyone else? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to 916, Member Kettle.
The board for 916 met last night. We did a first reading of the fiscal to budget book. We approved food service contracts for next year. We approved SRO officers for 3 other schools, including officers from Ramsey County and from the Fridley Police Department. We approved the long-term facility maintenance budget for 22 and 23 school year. And as I have reported in the past, there's a transition obviously going on now from Connie Hayes, Superintendent Connie Hayes for Northeast Metro 916 to Dr. Valray Bowe, who will be taking over as of July 1st. So that's my report on Northeast Metro. And before I leave that topic, I know our next one is Buildings and Grounds Committee. Into it, due to a medical issue, I was not available for that meeting, so I cannot report on that.
I can report on that, Alex.
Perfect. All right.
Do you want me to move forward, Jeff?
Yes.
Yes?
Please do.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So the first thing we talked about is the long-term facility maintenance revenue review. And we talked about all the upcoming projects that they're be working on. Then we talked about the construction projects update. We talked about the CLC project and the athletic fields, of course, that comes up for finance and buildings and grounds. So it's an exciting project, kind of where the status of that. And I also talked about the education center re-roofing. And then, of course, we have Bill always does an amazing job on all the maintenance items. He goes on, it's usually about a half an hour or so. He kind of keeps it and there's so many things that our custodians do within our buildings that it's just unbelievable how much time and effort that they have to do little projects. And it's just amazing. So kudos to them for all their fixes to keep our buildings looking and running as well as they do. So that's my report.
All right, thank you, Member Corcoran.
Mm-hmm.
We'll move on to City of Forest Lake, Member Tyson.
Yes, the Airport Commission met last night, Wednesday, May 5th. The city held their first ever Spring Fling event, which was on Saturday. They had a petting zoo, crafts, and games, and it was held at the City Center. I saw some of those pictures coming up on Facebook, and it looked like a terrific event. And what better place to have it at the new City Center? And also, I heard that the Senior Center is opening on May 10th. So that is very excited to know that those seniors can be enjoying their time there again. And that concludes my report.
All right, we'll move on to Communications Committee, also Member Tyson.
Yes, we had a great update from Renee Reedy. She talked about how she's been finishing up the elementary brochures. And she also added that she doesn't hang them out in the front because they get droopy and kind of messy. So if we ever need some, we can email her or they're inside her office and she can set them out for us. But in looking at some of our new brochures and stuff, we have a new wording that I thought board members should know about. It says preferred choice, which I thought is an excellent way to word and to have on our brochures because we absolutely are. Corey McKinnon, Director McKinnon, talked about we use Blackboard communication, which I thought was such an excellent idea to push out reminders for community ed, for like driver's ed, so that parents can get those reminders on Blackboard and know that, they can sign up for that. And he said they really see a spike from using that Blackboard communication. And then just that our swimming lessons are bursting at the seams, which is always good to know. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Tyson. It is good to hear swimming lessons are bursting at the seams. So much water in this state. Kids need to know how to swim. We'll move on to community education. Member Kettle.
Once again, I was unable to attend the meeting due to medical issues, so I cannot report on that this month.
Member Luthner.
I took notes for you. We missed you. So community ed, there were 9 people there, and it was a really good report, really going over how fast the pivot to online and online classes was just less than a year ago. They were speculating we may have been one of the first community eds to move to online. And so they ended up having some really positive effects where people from different sides of the country were taking cooking classes together, and there are more people in the adult education groups, and they're really considering keeping an online component, either an online component or an online session, or just working more with people where they are, because they were noticing so many people couldn't get a sitter, but they can be in class and learning for the adult basic education. But there's some state level accreditation if they're allowed to keep online for those ones. But for the community ed programs, they're definitely going to keep some online components because it was so successful. We also talked about how there's going to be a yoga and Zumba in Forest Lake in the park that is run by community ed in partnership with Forest Lake. So it will be subsidized. So it's going to be a very low cost thing for people, maybe even just walk in. And they are making it more of a walk in, not just make reservations. So that's giving back to the community. The blood drive, which I know a couple of us have attended, that was, I didn't realize until they said it, but with COVID shutting down so many opportunities to get blood, they were running out in the state, and they put out a call and they said, well, we can do it. And they just pulled it together in a really short notice to have a very successful blood drive, to the point where they've had more than one and have good plans moving forward to keep it up. And the groups that utilize the resource were really thankful that this was able to happen during kind of the need didn't go away, but the sources did. And then in a discussion on marching band, it is happening, but marching bands aren't allowed to march on streets this summer unless the rules changed again. They've been fighting a lot with constantly changing rules and regulations. And so that's can't be easy to plan around, just like anything else. But they are excited to have the kids doing something with marching band, whether it be play at Arts in the Park festivals or maybe at sporting events. So they were brainstorming some ideas of what can the marching band do without marching. So they're available for your event if you would like a marching band. But they were really open to just about what can we do with these kids that want to play. And that concludes my report.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move to Curriculum, Instruction, and Equity Committee. Also, Member Luther.
Which is also me. We need to mix these up, or not. So curriculum and instruction, there was 15 members, including one new parent. There was a good presentation on how our district is handling the dyslexia initiatives that are on a state level being really highlighted, and how that finding dyslexia and other abnormalities in learning super early, like 3 years old, really cuts down on the lasting poor effects. So early intervention, early tools, and then moving forward with these child's lives, it's much less of an impact. So they're hopeful that with dutiful use of these tools and techniques, that there in 20 years there won't be adults who say I can't read because I'm dyslexic, or find out that they have a reading disability in their adulthood. So making sure that that net is tight. We also talked about the lit coaches, which kind of a lot of what Scandia really talked about earlier today. So how the literacy coaches are doing, how some of the new programs are doing, all successful. And, everyone's hoping for the great results, but the kids and the teachers are enjoying it. So that's really half the equation. And then a good presentation that I don't want to be a spoiler alert. I have a feeling they're going to give a board presentation on the subject of realigning the middle school to more closely align with their high school, continuation of courses. So they met first a couple months ago, revisited again this month, saying that they've gotten through a lot of the foundational work. They've done a lot of benchmarking and talking to the right people. And they have some recommendations that they're still kind of polishing up, but it will be a change from what the middle school looks like right now. But it sounds like it's going to be a good set of changes. So hopefully rolling forward, when they're ready to present, it'll be a good presentation. And the idea is to try and get kids to experience things outside of their I like this, so I'm going to take this course. So encourage them to take an art class, even if they weren't planning on it, or take a world language, even if they weren't planning on it. So there'll be more course options and kind of a different way of making sure they have the ability to get to all these different options. And they'll probably have a really good presentation explaining it. But I'm excited to see that they're treating the middle school as a step in the continuum, not a silo. And so that's really good for any system to make sure that there's a pretty seamless evolution between preschool all the way to 12th grade. So they naturally lead one to the next. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Member Luther. We'll move to Member Rayfield, Equity in Our Schools.
Thank you. About 2 weeks ago, the Forest Lake Equity Steering Team had its final meeting of the school year. The Equity Steering Team is a new feedback advocacy group that formed directly as a result of the 2020 Forest Lake Area Schools strategic plan. A team of community members, students, cultural liaisons, and staff met 7 times with 20 to 25 people attending each meeting. Marceline DeBow of the Due East Educational Equity Collective facilitated 4 meetings, introducing a feedback framework used by the team, along with teaching the group new content on communication styles and navigating resistance in ourselves and others, right? Good, really good set of meetings. And the steering team assisted in producing a staff development inventory given to all teachers in the district. The results of the inventory will help guide staff development decisions for the coming school year.
All right. Thank you, Member Rayfield. We'll move to Finance Committee. Member Corcoran.
We discussed fiscal year 21 expenditure budget status. And we are actually there's a couple of things on the agenda tonight to do a general fund budget adjustment, 8.3, and also for 8.4 is food service meal price increase. We discussed the reasons that we had to be doing that. Legislative update was very in-depth. I'll be sending out notes to kind of give you guys the update exactly what was talked about, because there's 3 pages worth. So that'll be a better idea if I just send it. The draft budget, we're talking about, same as always, forecasting 100 student loss, no change in the formula, because we, of course, do not know exactly what we'll be getting from the state. And we also, of course, talked about the high school field again. So that's always a positive, wonderful thing to talk about. And Larry always has awesome pictures to show us of the dirt being moved and all those big equipment at the high school. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Member Corcoran. We'll move to Policy Committee. Member Luthner.
The Policy Committee, technically we didn't meet. Oh, okay. So the Policy Committee didn't have any policy to review in our standard list of policy. However, a subgroup met to start looking at policy to make sure it aligned with our strategic plan, specifically towards how we deal with race within the school. So we thought it was important to just sort of look at it in that sort of a lens to make sure that we have policies that support our strategic plan and a strategic plan that supports our policies. So fortunately, we've been doing good work all along, but never hurts to look twice.
Thank you, Member Luthner. Staff Welfare Committee. Member Olson.
Yes, we also discussed the federal stimulus funding. At that time, it was 1.6 billion surplus. We discussed in depth the teaching and learning position restructuring and the updated state guidance on prom, graduation, and academic awards. And I have to believe that is ever changing at this time. And we briefly touched on the public comment section of the school board meetings, and that will need to be revisited with all board members at a later time. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Member Olson. With that, we'll move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Massey. Steve, you're muted.
Thank you. Let me try that again. All right, Jeff, can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, thank you. Before I get started, I want to recognize that we've got Teacher Appreciation Week mentioned earlier, and also Nutrition Appreciation Week. Clearly, we wouldn't be where we're at with this school year without the incredible work of our staff across the district. So I just want to highlight the amazing work that our staff have done this year in particular. And if you saw the governor's announcement this week, or earlier today, he gave recognition to the efforts across the state to work our way through the pandemic, to now being at a place where the governor is able to start turning the dial toward less restrictions. So we got some updates on statewide loosening of restrictions, and some of those have direct application to schools. So first of all, I want to make clear that while we're going to be seeing less restrictions at the state level, and I'll highlight those in just a minute. Because our students are not yet vaccinated, schools through the end of the school year must still follow the safe learning plan that was provided for us at the beginning of the year that lays out the many different mitigation efforts. But there are some loosening restrictions. However, as we move forward, in light of some of the statewide lessening of restrictions or loosening of restrictions, masks are still going to be required. Mitigation strategies and distancing in our schools are still going to be required. Contact tracing, quarantining close contacts when we have positive cases are still going to be in play through the end of the school year. But earlier today, the governor laid out a 3-step plan for loosening restrictions. Step 1 begins actually tomorrow at noon. And that step 1 calls for no mask requirements for outdoor activities, except events with 500 or more people in a controlled access setting, more of a formal gathering with 500 people or more. That really won't apply to us, but outdoor activities as they relate to schools can be maskless. Of course, recess, physical education, but classes that go outside for learning as the weather gets nicer will be maskless events. Removing distancing requirements for outdoor activities and increasing capacity for indoor activities and events. That's going to certainly be relevant for us as we move forward with different indoor events that typically happen at the end of the school year. And again, we must follow the safe learning plan guidance until the last day of school. Beginning on May 28th, we move into step 2. And step 2 provided with the governor's update. All limits on restrictions come to an end, including indoor events and gatherings. Face coverings, however, will remain a requirement for indoor gatherings. However, the safe learning plan still applies to schools, again, because our kids, our students, have not yet been vaccinated. I'll talk about vaccinations in just a minute. Then in step 3, beginning on July 1st, or when the state reaches the benchmark of 70% or more of the population in the state being fully vaccinated, all restrictions will be lifted statewide, including mask requirements. So the information around vaccinations, we've learned that, and we know that the Pfizer vaccine has been approved through the emergency authorization order for students ages 16 and older. So the district is currently working with families and students promoting this opportunity. Washington County and other sites locally are providing this opportunity for 16-year-old students and older. And we are really trying to work to promote and encourage our 16-year-old and older to get vaccinated. The state shared today, and the Commissioner of Education shared, that they're expecting the Pfizer vaccine to be approved for 12-year-olds and older beginning as early as next week. If that occurs, then we will provide all the opportunities and communication that we can to our families and students to also get in line for the vaccine. MDH will also be calling for opportunities for school districts to hold on-site clinics. They'll be looking to push some of those clinics straight into districts. And we will be hopefully right in line to bring those vaccination opportunities into the district for our 16-year-old and older, but also, if approved, our 12-year-old students and older. With this information, we will continue our planning for next year. And I have to say that with these loosening requirements, we're extremely optimistic for what next year might look like and how next year might look more normal than we have experienced this year. However, that will depend largely on our student vaccination rates. So we, again, will be encouraging our families and students to study the science, get accurate information, and hopefully get vaccinated. That will, along with our staff being vaccinated, take us a long ways toward being back to a normal setting as we start next year. Interesting development with respect to a distance learning option next year. This year, as you know, we have Ranger Academy. We started the year with 400 and some students or more in Ranger Academy. Now it's under that number. If we are still in a COVID environment next year, there still may be an interest in a distance learning option because of the concern around COVID. But with vaccines and the developments through the summer, hopefully we'll be in a better place. With the expiration of the governor's executive orders, through which the distance learning option we provided this year was authorized, with the governor's executive orders being eliminated and expiring, that option won't be available for districts. That said, the legislature is considering different bills that would allow districts to provide online learning and distance learning options without getting state approval through the process that we had to go through for our Ranger Online program. So stay tuned at the legislature to see what develops there. But we won't have that option through executive order, and that was shared directly from the commissioner today. But again, we're optimistic for a close to normal school year next year without masks, without all of the mitigation efforts and distancing and all those different requirements that we have to follow this year. With these developments and with COVID cases going down, we are excited to, and if Jim was on, he could talk about prom and graduation. Again, we need to follow the stay safe entertainment guidelines as it applies to prom and graduation. The high school staff is planning an outdoor and indoor graduation, and the indoor graduation becomes an option under step 2 of the plans that was laid out today. Prom is scheduled for May 22nd at the Mall of America. Jim and his team have put a lot of effort into planning that event for students. And graduation is scheduled for Thursday, June 10th. And we have an outdoor and the beginning plans of an indoor graduation with the new guidance that was provided today. Summer events, Arts in the Park and 4th of July are on at the city level. We have our application in for a booth for the Arts in the Park, and we have our application in for our spot in the 4th of July parade. So things are slowly beginning to turn to normal as those events did not occur last year. Some exciting developments there as well. And then lastly, our legislative update. The legislature is scheduled to come to a close on May 17th. They are still a long ways apart in the Senate and the House Omnibus Education Bill. They're in conference committee. We're not sure, and there's a lot of speculation on whether or not they'll finish on time. With that, there's expectation that the legislature may be moving into a special session into June. Our transportation bill sparsity bill is still alive, both in the House and the Senate, and is on the table at conference committee. So we're excited for getting some movement and traction on our transportation bill. So with that, that concludes my report, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to thank you, Dr. Massey. Appreciate the report. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Yes. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes
Aye. Yep.
all ayes.
Motion passes, and with that, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Massey, for an introduction for Haley Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask, there we go, Haley, thank you for joining us. Just real briefly, we were fortunate to have a really competitive pool of candidates, highly qualified candidates, and we went through the district policy for hiring administrators. And I'm pleased to announce that Haley Lang has been offered, and she has graciously accepted the position. I'll be asking for you've just approved through consent agenda. So thank you for that. Haley will bring a wealth of experience and credentials to this position. She earned her BA degree from St. Cloud State University in Social Studies Education, a master's degree in education from Hamlin, and her administrative specialist degree from Minnesota State University in Mankato. Haley has extensive experience in educational leadership and administration. She currently serves as an assistant principal at the high school. She also served as a dean of students at the high school and an assistant principal and activities director in another district. Prior to her work in administration, Haley was a social studies teacher for 8 years and an instructional coach for 3 years. Haley will begin her principal position at Forest Lake Area Middle School on July 1st, and I'm excited for the leadership and the experience that Haley will bring to the middle school. Congratulations, Haley, and we're excited to have you join the team at the middle school. So, Haley, I will stop and give you an opportunity to say a couple things.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Chair, Dr. Massey, members of the board. I just feel very thrilled and honored. I was first hired by Dr. Massey back in 2015 as a dean of students at the high school, and my time here has been more than I ever would have imagined. I agree with a lot of the comments that you all have made as members tonight, that this is a progressive district, and the opportunities that our students and our staff afford each other and what we do as administration, I think is one of the most elite groups in the metro and in the state. And I honestly couldn't be more thrilled and a little surprised that I was hired. And I just know that this is an amazing time in our district, and I'm so appreciative. And I don't know if the start date is actually July 1st because I'm getting a lot of calls from JP. So I feel like that's a start date is a little bit open, but I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to you all tonight, and just am so grateful.
All right, well, Member Tyson, I see your hand up.
Sorry, I just have to chime in. Haley, this is just serendipitous that, we got you back after that awful board meeting when we were going through cuts after cuts after cuts, and you were there in the back of the room, and it was an awful night. And so it's just serendipitous that you're here and you're promoted to that position. I love how you look at things through an equity lens, and you prove your dedication in the equity innovation labs and all your time spent, and just your commitment to our district by coming back and being such an asset in every way. So welcome aboard, Principal Haley.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Member Corcoran?
No, I just wanted to also concur what Member Tyson said. We're just so happy that you're back in our district, and I think you're going to just have great leadership and just your enthusiasm and positive attitude. I've always just respected that, and you just bring such just exuberance and just make things. I know at graduation you were there just pumping everybody up and just bringing your happy attitude, and it just really lightens up a room. So I'm just really thankful that you took on the position, and we're just thrilled that you're going to be over at the middle school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you, Principal Lang. And we will move on. We will move to action items number 8, 8.1, donations. Member Ketto, do you want to read the donations tonight?
I would love to do that. This month we had a total donation of $12,616.55, And there were at least a few that need recognition beyond that. There was a $4,000 donation from Hunter Hool Memorial Foundation to assist Forest Lake Community Ed students that need help toward programming. There were two $3,067.02 donations from the Forest Lake Girls Track Boosters and the Forest Lake Boys Track Boosters to pay for half of their assistant coaches for the 20 and 21 season. There was also, I had to note this, but it was a $50 donation from the city of Scandia for a classroom donation for having the winning student entry in a Dela story contest. So I just had to do that for the fun of it. So anyway, we'd like to thank all those organizations and individuals who contributed to the district. Thank you very much.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the donations as read.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto. Member Ketto looks frozen to me.
Aye.
Aye. Member Ketto votes aye. And Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye.
And with that, motion passes. I appreciated that Member Kettle was able to thaw out there just in the nick of time. Now with that, we will move on to 8.2, approve the proposed 2021-22 school board meeting dates. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would point out to the board, we tend to follow the first and third Thursday pattern, but that pattern is broken a couple of times throughout the year. And I just point those out that in October, the October 14th is an adjustment with MEA. January 13th is a movement to the second Thursday because there's a national superintendent conference that I like to attend then. And then on June 30th, that would represent the July 4th meeting, or the first meeting in July. But all the way back to the first meeting on this list would be July 15th. Notice the start time of 5 p.m. And that would be a meeting that we would really be kind of in a workshop setting until 8 p.m., following up on the board evaluation, board goal setting, all tied to the strategic plan leading into goals for the superintendent. So with that, we would ask your approval.
So with that, we have a motion and a second on the floor, I believe. So do we have any discussion? Member Tyson?
Not to be redundant, but I guess I always look for adding some type of workshop time for our board, and even a workshop where we can determine the agenda, have it for reflection, have it for just bonding and time together. But if that could somehow be put in with the June 30th, anyway, it's just an idea I brought up over the years.
Thank you for the input. I think June 30th would not be the best time, but I think mid-month meeting we could look at one of those further into the summer, maybe the August one.
Yeah, I think it's something to consider, and I think the superintendent and the board chair could maybe look at that and see what they could bring to us at another meeting.
Okay. Will do.
And maybe find out what kind of a food to bring.
What was that, Member Rayfield?
Well, I just said, and plan out what kind of food to bring.
Oh.
You're in charge of that.
All right. Any further discussion? Member Corcoran, I see you have your hand up. Is that still up or? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Okay, Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We'll move on to 8.3, third general fund budget adjustment. Director Martini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everyone. Each month, the budgets are reviewed by the Finance Committee, and the expended budget is compared against the prior year's budget for trend analysis. So these proposed budget adjustments are a result of that review of revenue and expenditure patterns. In the general fund, we have Jackie Hegel come in the spring. She's our auditor from MMKR. And in working with Chrissy Renberg, our controller, they test our revenues for state aid and taxes. We've got a $150,000 proposed increase to property taxes, a $350,000 increase to state aids, and a $100,000 reduction for local revenues. So that's a total general fund revenue adjustment upwards of $400,000. Also on the expenditure side, the Finance Committee has identified a need to increase employee benefits by about $300,000 and increase capital outlay by $100,000. So revenue adjustments totaling $400,000, expenditure adjustments totaling $400,000. There isn't going to be any improvement to fund balance. And as our budget sits now, if these adjustments are approved, there would be a small contribution of approximately $350,000 to general fund balance. In the food service fund, revenue, due to constantly changing our learning models and the participation rates dropping because of that, we're going to be underperforming about 17% on revenue. ESSER funds can certainly cover that, but that is a $650,000 hit on $4 million to revenue. There are no expenditure adjustments proposed, so this would be a fund balance decline of about $650,000. And then in a detailed analysis of the community education fund, things look on track, but we want to take down revenue about $400,000 and expenditures about $400,000. And I thoroughly trust Mr. McKinnon's financial acumen here. We would ask that you approve all of those budget adjustments, and I can stand for questions if you have them.
All right, do we have any questions for Director Martini? Member Luthner?
I have a question. So as for the school meals, given the state or federal aid programs, how does that affect numbers, I guess?
So when meals are all free for folks, then we actually receive maybe 10%, 12% less revenue per meal. And the participation drops off dramatically when we're in distance learning. We still are providing meals, but folks then would travel to school for pickup, or we're busing meals to certain locations. So that participation has dramatically fallen off, particularly throughout the winter. We're proud of our efforts to stay in school till basically the end of November and be back in school while winter was still underway. But this is about a 17% effect on food service.
All right, thank you, Member Luthner. Member Tyson, I see you had your hand up.
So, Director Martini, are we talking about 8.4?
We are not yet, but
we're not. Then I'll save my question.
That would be very related.
All right. Any further questions for Director Martini? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for 8.3.
Make a motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, Member Clerk, would you please say roll call?
Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye.
All right. With that, we will move to 8.4, food service mandatory meal price increase. Director Martini.
For approximately 7 years, it might be longer, the food service supervisor is required to review the meal prices as required by the United States Department of Agriculture. They require that we use their paid lunch equity tool. It's a spreadsheet where we input the prices, and that tool calculates an increase in lunch prices of approximately 31 cents for the 21-22 school year. Now, that large of an increase would certainly negatively affect participation. We believe a 10 cent to 15% increase wouldn't dramatically affect participation. So Paige Albrecht, our food service supervisor, is requesting that increase, 15 cents across the board, to decrease what is deemed by the USDA as an equity price gap.
Okay. So do we have any questions for Director Martini? Member Tyson, I see you have your hand up.
So Director Martini, we went that extra 5 cents over, correct?
So Paige thinks that if we get above the minimum, which is 10 cents, closer to the 31 cents, she perceives the tipping point at 20 cents might negatively affect participation. These are estimates, but these are estimates by people who are in the business. And so we are recommending that you adopt 15 cents, although the school board could do anything between 10 and 31.
And we don't think that 15 is a tipping point, or that's been studied, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We have done 15-cent increases in the past and have minimal loss of participants.
Good to know. That's reassuring. And then, is that just for this coming school year?
They do it annually, and so this is simply a price increase for FY22.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Director Martini? Member Olson, I see you have your hand up.
So Larry, I get that it's a fine line between what you can charge and how people are going to drop off the program, but does that mean essentially we're losing money every meal we sell?
No, this is a recommendation of a price increase compared against the region and based on an algorithm that's inside their spreadsheet. With the 15 cents, I'll share with you that at the participation levels, we are predicting, and we're conservative in our predictions. When we get to 9/1, we believe we'll have a balanced food service revenue and expenditure budget.
Any further questions for Director Martini? Member Rayfield, did you have something?
No, I was just sighing.
Oh, okay. With that, I would entertain a motion for 8.4.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Okay. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye.
Right, motion passes. We'll move to 8.5, permission to bid paving rehabilitation. Director Martini.
So we annually review our paving needs. We seem to always have them. And the Building and Grounds Committee has recommended construction and repair at the CLC and the transportation facility. So we're asking Mr. Bacall from Larson Engineering to create the specifications and prepare the project for bid. Ultimately, we'll have bid results, a tabulation, and we'll come back to you with a recommendation for work that would commence near the end of the summer. please authorize us to go ahead and solicit bids for paving rehabilitation.
Do we have any questions for Director Martini? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion for 8.5.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, and I see Member Tyson, you put your hand up.
I just wanted to ask Director Martini, do you consider this to be a large project? Is this going to be a large bid, or in terms of dollar amount?
We anticipate it will exceed $500,000 and be less than $1 million.
Okay.
Because some of the work at CLC is to create a cul-de-sac from the east so that it's no longer a through street past Schumacher Field, and then do some work at the parking lot right along Schumacher on the south side of the CLC parking lot. And then transportation needs quite a bit of work. So
yeah, we know they do.
Counting from zero up, large, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Member Luthner, would you please take a roll call?
Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye, and Member Luthner votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We'll move to 8.6, approve proposal for employee group life and accidental death and dismemberment insurance and LTD insurance. Director Martini.
We're required to go out for proposals at least every 60 months. We often do that a little more frequently just to be in the market. And what is exciting is that we got specs sent out to 8 carriers. We got 4 responses. The tabulation is attached. But thankfully, our current carrier, Madison National Life, came back with a reduction from 0.49 to 0.39% of covered payroll on LTD, and from 0.175 down to 0.155 for life insurance, also with Madison National, and the AD&D component remained at 0.019. These would become effective October 1st of 21 if you approve them this evening.
Do we have any questions for Director Martini?
Larry, I'm just wondering, what is like the dollar amount equal with those reductions if they, offering the lower fees? Just a ballpark. Any idea?
They're not on the tab that I shared with you, but they're in the 20,000 range for each product. So about 20,000 across the board to employees on savings for LTD. They pay their own premiums. And then about 20,000 savings to the school district.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's great news.
Any other questions for Director Martini? Hearing none, with that, I would entertain a motion for 8.6.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. And Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye.
All right, with that, we'll move on to 8.7, ratify the 2020-2022 Forest Lake Association of Professional Office Personnel Agreement. Dr. Massey.
Yeah, I'm pleased to bring to you tonight a ratified agreement with the Forest Lake Association of Professional Office Personnel. This agreement is within the parameters set by the school board. You will see on page 26 of the agreement, the $250 across the board annual increase on 403B. You will see on page 34 of the agreement in Appendix A, a 2% increase in the first year, which would be the 2021 school year, and then a 0% increase in the second year of the agreement. And then I would point you to page 40 of the agreement, where you'll see the same memorandum of understanding that we have in the other ratified agreements, indicating that should the district receive revenues from the state legislature that would allow us to reopen this contract for considering an increase in the second year. So that memorandum of understanding spells that out. And then lastly, an additional memorandum of understanding on page 41, spelling out that long-term subs that would fill a position within this group would be eligible after a period of time for benefits within this contract. And with these changes and updates, administration would recommend approval. And I would just like to point out the amazing work that this group does. We're indebted to them every single day, and we're grateful to have struck this agreement.
Okay. Do we have a motion on 8.7?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I have a question. Steve, I'm just curious, how many people does this include?
Director Friedman, are you available? I'm thinking it's going to be in the upper teens to around 20.
It's probably around 25, 30, I would say.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just
Did you raise your
like to
hand?
say I would.
Oh, go ahead, Member Rayfield. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I would just want to say that I certainly hope we'll be able to do something about that second year. I'm glad that that catch is in there so that we can, if things go well, that we can make sure that we share that out.
All right. Member Tyson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd like to ask Director Friedman or Superintendent, I believe it's on page 23. How many do we have in that severance area? From 19, the dates are in there. I'm just curious, how many do we still have in this contract that are in that?
We might very well actually be out of them, but no one noticed it at this stage, so we'll catch it next time. We didn't want to go back and say, oh, wait a minute.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks, Donna. Then the other thing I just want to comment on in section 4, page 32 is that for that clothing allowance, I really like that idea of having that be a ranger wear allowance. So looks like a great contract, and like concur with Member Rayfield, it's always great when they're ratified and our employees are happy. And yes, they are an incredible group and a definite asset to our district. Oh, my battery's running.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson? Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. And Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We'll move on to new business. The first reading recommendations to review the 21-22 budget. Director Martini. Or are we going to Dr. Massey?
Hey.
No.
All right.
Well, thank you again. Hopefully you're able to see my screen. Please let me know.
Yep, we're good, Larry.
We like to just share with you a few slides as we work through this first review of the budget. Member Corcoran shared with you that the Finance Committee has been working on these items for quite some time, probably the last 2 or at least 3 meetings. And so that's pretty exciting. This next page is just really a tip of the hat to all the administrators who contacted students and parents and held our enrollment far better than the rest of the school districts throughout the state. Consistently, month after month, we were in a deficit position of about 60 students. We budgeted for a loss of 100 kids, and retaining that many during the pandemic was an amazing feat. So just a tip of the hat to those folks. And I mentioned to you earlier that we look at our expenditure budget monthly, and we actually go back a couple of years. So at the last Finance Committee meeting, we examined expenditures through March 31st, 2021. We're looking at the salary, wages, employee benefits, 2 largest categories, and we're trending a little bit better than a year ago, and pretty close to what we saw in prior years. Not to mention the overall expenditures are lower than they were a year ago and pretty close to what they were in fiscal 19 and fiscal 18. So this process gives us confidence in what we project for expenditures as we look forward. And we also look at what was our variance in the audit the last go around. So this chart is actually from our audit from fiscal 2020. We're in fiscal 21 now, and earlier this evening, one of the budget adjustments that you approved was for employee benefits, so that we could ensure that the green portion of the chart is actually just below the blue portion of the chart. Last year, it wasn't right-sized, and so we did have a slight negative variance there. So we look at all of that stuff, and we share with you how we're doing. Here is the detail that we shared with the Finance Committee about the food service deficit, the community education process. Now, in the general fund, it's very exciting that we're going to be contributing to our fund balance. It's going to be moving from $2.6 million to very close to $3 million for total fund balance there. That's exciting. I shared with the Finance Committee legislative updates that MASA and other organizations do from Valerie Doslin. She also is a MASBO, Minnesota Association of School Business Officials. She's their legislative liaison as well. And the 2 key takeaways from these 2 slides is that the House has $770 million on the table with 2% per year and some special ed dollars. They also have in policy renewal of an existing operating referendum. Now, on the Senate side, they've only got $152 million on the table. So there's no increase in the general ed formula allowance. They're in conference committee right now, as Dr. Massey stated. We don't expect them to come together by May 17th. What we need to see, though, is at least a target at $500 million or more. We think because the governor has a tax increase proposed that they end up in special session. They probably won't go to government shutdown, but they might. In order to get rid of that tax increase, Republicans are really going to be holding the line, and it's going to be a difficult summer. We may not find out right away in June what's going to happen. However, we've been here before. This is our second go around in this scenario. This slide is from Brad Lundell in Schools from Equity and Education, and it's really just restating some of those issues that the first two legislative update slides shared. But we truly believe we're in a position now to predict what the ultimate outcome will be, and that would be that we'll have 2% on the formula in the upcoming school year. But it will be probably 85 or 90 degrees on the day that we learn that. So we're in a position to, as Member Corcoran mentioned, predict with a loss of 100 kids, but an increase in the formula, and using some of our GEAR and ESSER funds, we'll be developing a revenue budget of $79,125,000. This estimate or guess hasn't changed from the Finance Committee meeting of January 21, but it's been reinforced over time. We also have federal funds over $1.5 million. Food Service will probably use some of that for their deficit. That's the ESSER 3 funds. I believe that figure is close to $1.8 million. So that's not shown here. On the expenditure side, we did do a little bit of adjustment in personnel. Single insurance for the medical side is no change. That's a district cost, so that was frozen. Family increase, it'll depend on what happens with negotiated contracts going forward, whether that'll be a large district expense or not. We're not anticipating that it will be. We'll try to hold the line on that in bargaining. And so you see the difference from the current year. It's labeled prior year, but the current year, fiscal 21, is on the right-hand side with a budget of $79,125,000 predicted for fiscal 22. We plot those in the overall chart. Member Tyson was curious about food service. They've got a balanced budget. The 15 cents that you approved this evening is in there. I've been working with Mr. McKinnon on community ed. There are a few things he is looking to refine on the voluntary pre-K side of things. And so with Bethany Hardy's help, we're going to dig into this a little further. Construction debt service, OPEB debt service, those are all pretty well spelled out. So this being the first reading, I can certainly stand for questions. We're still at a work in progress, but I wanted to get you the picture that we think is unfolding, particularly with our legislative prognostication.
Do we have any questions for Director Martini? Member Rayfield?
Yeah, Director Martini, just again, if you give me the timeline of how it plays out from here.
We would be at Finance Committee again if there's any adjustments in community education. We don't think we need to adjust the general fund any further at this point in time. And recall, we'll approve the budget at the next regular school board meeting. And then as we learn things over time, we come with budget adjustments. Tonight, we actually did the third one. Usually we only do 2 a year, but sometimes probably a handful of times since I've been at Forest Lake, we've done a third adjustment. So that's how this would unfold, because the budget really is more of a roadmap. Once I print the numbers, they're guaranteed to have a variance.
Well, I do appreciate, it's really been a crazy year, and I really appreciate the steady hand on the tiller that you and your staff had. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Member Tyson, I see you have your hand up. I think we lost Member Tyson.
One thing I really do want to emphasize is there are so many headlines of AMSD districts. There are so many headlines of outstate districts that are going through drastic and dramatic budget cuts due to loss of students to charters, loss of students to parochial schools, homeschooling, and as probably best stated this evening by new Principal Lang, we provide some outstanding opportunities. We provide some incredible learning for kids, and parents recognize that and keep their kids with us.
Thank you, Director Martini. Do we have any other questions? Member Corcoran?
No, I just wanted to extend what a great team Director Martini has. Budgeting is not an easy thing. I can't even imagine with the numbers and the flux of funding from the state and federal government, what a great job they do forecasting. I just think about your own budget and your own personal household. Think about that a million times over. So just what a great thing. And that there is only a few budget adjustments each year is pretty incredible work that they put out every year. And I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and your staff. They put a lot of time and effort into this, creating these budgets. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. And keeping us keeping us informed of, potential issues and things like that come up. And just thank you for your hard work.
All right. Seeing no other questions, no other hands up. Thank you, Director Martini. And we will move on, review upcoming calendar dates, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
There you go. Yes, sure.
We're squeezing in.
Yeah.
Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson, I see you.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. And Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
What a party.